and welcome. My name is Hugo Zandberg, as Simon said, and I would just like to say thank you for this opportunity to be able to be presenting today on some of the work I've done. And thank you for joining my presentation entitled Post-Thinning Control of Harvester Operator Consistency and Adaptability using UAV-Derived Imagery. The contents of this presentation will be as follows. Plantation forestry of fast-growing species requires timely and accurate thinning regimes to target the production of logs for specific products such as saw timber and veneer. These intensive silvicultural regimes are there to maximize the growth of not-free timber to be used in these specific products. The typical saw timber rotation in South Africa consists of 25 years, including up to 4 prunings and 2 thinnings. The use of remote sensing is a fastly developing field worldwide, and the application of such technologies varies over a wide range, from 3D city modeling to a data collection tool used in forestry via UAV photogrammetry and LiDAR. The aim of this study was to evaluate the effectiveness of UAV data in providing the key information related to thinnings. This includes the following objectives that we were looking for: stocking, thinning degree, thinning consistency, as well as need for thinning. The experiments needed for this study took place at a research site located in the Highveld of Mpumalanga Province, South Africa. This is located at the Jessivale plantation near York Timber's Jessivale Mill. These trials were performed on 2 neighboring stands, each in average size of 30 hectares. These stands were planted with Pinus patula, or more commonly known as Mexican weeping pine. The average planting density of these sites were 1,100 stems per hectare, and this all at elevation of 1,700 meters above sea level. The experiment was the experiment workflow. This experiment was done by firstly dividing the stands into treatment plots by marking these plots on ground level. Next, the pre-thinning flight was performed using a UAV known as the Mavic DJI Pro, which is a commercially available product fitted with a 12 megapixel camera. Next, the pre-thinning infield data capture was done by taking a 10% random sample in each respective plot. These 10% samples, the 7% of the heights of the trees were collected, as well as the diameters of all the trees and the number of trees in these 10% samples. Next, the marked plots were thinned. The thinnings took place with a Ponzi beaver harvester, and the thinnings were in 2 treatments. 2 thinning treatments, sorry. 2 thinning treatments were applied to these plots. Firstly, being a combined straight row and selective thinning, and second being a combined diagonal row and selective thinning. After all of these plots were treated or thinned, the post-thinning flight could take place, as well as the post-thinning infield data sampling to collect the needed data. Okay, so here is the pre-thinning flight data captured by the Mavic Pro and stitched together as an ortho photo and overlaid on Google Maps. And here is the post-thinning flight data as an ortho photo, as a comparison. And as you can clearly see, you can see the 2 different treatment methods applied, where these are the straight row selective and combined selective thinnings, and these are the diagonal row selective thinnings actually applied to the plots. Next, the data flow and manipulation. The following combination of open source and commercially available software was used to manipulate and extract the information from the UAV data. Firstly, we will be looking at Agisoft Metashape Pro. Agisoft was used to perform the structure for motion, creating a sparse point cloud from the drone images. Next, the dense point cloud was constructed, and classified. Thereafter, a digital elevation model was created as well as an orthomosaic from the dense point cloud. Next, the dense point cloud and the orthomosaic was exported for further use. Here is a glimpse of a classified dense point cloud created in Agisoft. And as you can see, these numbers are the georeferencing that took place. And as you can see, the different colors in here by the green, brown, and gray is the classification of this site. Next, Cloud Compare. Cloud Compare was used to clean the point clouds made in Agisoft by removing the unwanted points in the point cloud, meaning that only the remaining region or only the regions of interest remained. Next, the before and after thinning point clouds were roughly aligned, reducing the root mean square error to less than 3 meters in the X, Y, and Z axis. Next, the respective plots were snipped from the compartments, from the bigger point clouds from the compartments by using the shapefiles created in QGIS, dividing the clouds into workable chunks as per thinning treatment applied. Next, these segmented blocks were finely aligned, reducing the root mean square error to less than 1 meter in the X, Y, and Z axis. These segmented blocks were next exported for further use and processing. As seen here are the different steps performed in Cloud Compare. This is the point clouds imported and roughly aligned without any removal of points. Next, the edges of the point clouds were removed and a rough alignment was done again. After the rough alignment of the full compartments before and after thinning, the treatment blocks or plots were snipped out from these bigger compartments, and these smaller plots were then finely aligned to reduce the overall root mean square error. Next, QGIS. QGIS was used throughout the whole project as it is a valuable tool when working with digital elevation models and orthophotos, as well as to create shapefiles. The pre-R and Cloud Compare use of QGIS. QGIS was used to make the shapefiles to cut these stands of the point clouds into segments in Cloud Compare. The random sampling per plot was also done in QGIS, and the buffered regions around these random samples were done. These 10% samples, basically. Okay, so after R and Cloud Compare use of QGIS, after extracting the treetops, they could be plotted in QGIS to visualize that the algorithm actually detected the right trees. Thus, the shapefiles were created, the buffer shapefiles created were used to snip out these treetops. Next, these treetops were exported for further use. Here is a visualization of the QGIS work done. As seen by this red borders, these are the shapefiles created to snip the compartment into the respective treatment plots. Next, the random samples were all inserted, and the random samples were then buffered to imitate 10% of the area of the sample plot taken, as seen in all of these plots. Next, the treetops that were detected using the R script were imported. This is the pre-R use of QGIS, was imported, and basically these buffered regions were used to segment only the trees or the samples of interest. Here is a close-up of this samples, basically the tree tops detected via the R or the algorithm used in R. Okay. Next, the RStudio manipulation. The data manipulation was done by utilizing, the processing in RStudio. RStudio was used to analyze the point clouds and extract the needed data by programming functions by using the existing R packages such as Forest Tools and LiDAR. The dense point clouds were processed block by block as snipped out in Cloud Compare. This was done to minimize the last file sizes to less than 6 gigabytes, as R does not like to process last files of 6 gigabyte and more. Next, the ground points were classified in R. And these ground points, after the ground points were classified, the point clouds were normalized. After the normalization, canopy height models could be constructed. And after canopy height models were constructed, the treetop detection algorithm could be ran on either the last file or the canopy height model constructed. Here is some visualizations of what happened in R. And to the left is a visualization of a point cloud before any processing happened on it. So this is after Cloud Compare. This is straight imported into R and plotted as a 3D graph. As seen, these red colors up here, that is the highest elevations in the last file, and the dark blue stuff at the bottom is the lowest elevation. Next, after classification, the point cloud was plotted. Classification happens by classifying the ground points and leaving the vegetation as classification 0. These ground points are classified, and these are the blue points down below. Next, the normalization took place. Normalization was done by pulling down the classified ground points to elevation of 0. Thus, meaning that if you create a canopy height model on this last file, that you would only get the tree heights and the elevation would be neglected. Well, the elevation of the site. Then to the right, if you look there, that is the detection of the treetops using the algorithm, the treetops detection algorithm. And this is plotted in 3D as seen by these red dots. But to get a better view, we will be looking at the treetops detected on a canopy height model as seen below. So down here, you can see the canopy height model constructed with all these little blue dots are the treetops detected. Okay, results and discussion. Next, we will be talking about the stocking. The stocking results was calculated for the straight row and selective and combined selective thinning, as well as for the diagonal row and selective thinnings, combined selective thinnings. If we look at these tables, we have 3 columns. The target column, which is the target in the before thinning, that is an amount of stems per hectare at planting. At the after thinning, that is the goal after thinning, or the goal or the target of the stocking after thinning. Next, the R count mean is the UAV data collected. That's the stocking derived from the UAV data collected. And the manual mean is the stocking derived from the manual in-field sampling that was done. As seen, the overall stocking is an average of both treatment methods in this study. And down below is are 3 graphs to represent this visually. As we can see, the UAV data collected versus the manual data collected trails closely to the target values in straight and diagonal row thinnings. Next, we will be looking at the thinning degree and thinning consistency. The thinning degree was calculated in stems per hectare as for the straight row and selective thinning method, as well as for the diagonals. And as we can see, the average, which is the overall thinning degree, is about 268 stems per hectare removed. So these are the amount of stems per hectare on average removed per plot. Next, we will be looking at the thinning consistency. Thinning consistency was calculated by taking the standard deviation of the amount of the thinning degree per plot, and that was calculated per thinning treatment applied as well as overall. And as we can see, the thinning consistency on the straight and combined selective thinnings has a lower number, meaning that those blocks or plots had a lower standard deviation from the mean. whereas the diagonal thinnings had a higher standard deviation from the mean. Next, and lastly, the need for thinning. The need for thinning was retroactively calculated by using the relative spacing or relative density. These numbers basically are here in straight, are represented for the straight treatments as well as for the diagonal, and the overall is average again, and as seen in the graph below. This relative density numbers were calculated, and as seen, overall the relative density of the before thinning plots for all of the treatment plots are about 6.68. And from literature, we can see that if the relative density is above 6, it means that the stands are fully stocked, and thus a thinning is indeed needed. After thinning, we can see that the relative density has decreased to 5. That means that the relative density, again from literature, is between 3 and 6, and that means that the stand is experiencing competition but is still healthily growing. Thus, in conclusion, we can say that clearly that UAV-derived imagery is indeed capable of providing these key objectives and information related to thinnings and thinning operations. Thank you very much. I hope this was interesting and informative. And I would just like to say thank you to Forestry South Africa and the Department of Science and Technology, and as well as York Timbers for providing the needed resources to do this study. And special thanks to my supervisor, Prof. Talbot, and my co-supervisor, Simon Ackerman, and as well as Mr. Makoto for his work in field. Thank you very much. I hope you have a great day, and I will be available later for questioning.